plus their passwords to their computer.
Yes, of course.
Most people have no clue what's
That's
going on.
right. I have a little book.
Yeah,
Mm.
and so there's those two things, which in my case, I encourage, an adult child, if they don't already have their own family, to
Yeah.
put this information in a sealed envelope.
Okay.
Put it
Wise
on
idea.
your desk that you wouldn't be open. The other thing, there's those two requirements.
Right.
It's important. Another thing that children seem to be very committed to
Mm-hmm.
is they want to donate organs, and
Right. Okay. Of
they
course. Yes. Of
the
course.
back of their license and authorize
Mm.
that.
Mm.
It's also a good idea to have a place where you have a list of the name of their physician, where their
Right. Yes. Yes.
depending if you have a child who is diabetic or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
epilepsy, who knows?
Yes. Yes.
You've got to have some maps and things set up
Mm-hmm.
so that
Mm-hmm.
they can be properly taken care of.
Right.
Now, let's say you're 55.
Mm-hmm.
What do you need then? Well, all those things I just described, you need all
Right.
of that, because if you fallen and broken your leg, it has to have surgery, you're in the hospital, then you have to go to a convalescence place.
Right. Of course.
You're
Of
going to
course.
want someone managing your bills.
Yes, you are.
uh, Depending on what else is going on, you're going to
Mm.
want somebody who's helping you with medical decisions.
That's right. And of course,
And
if your
maybe
mental state is
attending,
not about,
there's
if you don't have
so
any
much
mental sort
going
of
on.
capacity,
And then there's all the claims with
yes.
medical bills and on and on. And of course, let's just say you have a pet. If
Right,
you don't
right.
have something
Okay.
set up with that,
Yes.
well, who's going to take care of your pet while you're in
Mm.
and if your children are under 18? So all these, you
Wow.
need to have this circle that steps
Sure.
in.
So, Mary, let me just say one thing to you. You've just shared the magnitude of the things that one person requires, okay? And as you're speaking, and I can hear the importance of all of those things, but for someone who's not really in that space thinking about that right now, it might seem really overwhelming, all right? So, how do you deal with clients who really don't want to consider what you're saying? They know it's important, they know that they need to make sure they do it, but they cannot handle the overwhelm because it's too emotional for them to start thinking about that at such an early stage. Tell me how you would work with somebody like that.
Well, you mentioned in the intro that I have a company called Advanced Legal Training Institute, which
Yes.
I am involved in setting up continuing legal education for estate planning attorneys.
Right.
And what I say to them is basically what they're talking about when
Mm-hmm.
they're meeting with you and writing up your estate plan, is they're talking about dying.
Right, right,
And it
absolutely.
that's not what we're designed to do. We're
No,
designed to live.
that's right.
And so to talk about dying, what I do when I give presentations, I say we're going to go visit a place, which
Okay.
is that place when you're at the end of life. How
Mm,
you want that to be. Do you want to be at home? Do you care if you're in the hospital?
right.
And then we're going to document it, and then we're going to come right back to here and put that in a drawer.
I'm with you. So you start with the
And,
future in
and so
mind
it,
and work your way
and you're
back.
right, it is something to think about,
Yes.
because um yeah, it's going to happen to all of us. I mean, i
Mm,
i don't know how old Elizabeth Taylor was when she died, but
no, I'm
I
not
think
sure.
live forever. I mean, I
Right, right,
can't imagine the world without her, but
right.
eventually everybody dies. So
Yes, yes, it's
what a
inevitable.
gift it would be. And then
Mm,
there's much more. I said the third part is last wishes, but you may have some jewelry that
right.
is not necessarily valuable, but it was given to you by
As an
your
heirloom or something. Yes,
and
yes.
you need to write little notes. What I'm
Mm,
doing right now is I'm just laying, I don't have a lot of fancy things, but I'm laying them
okay.
out on my bed and taking
Yes,
photographs.
good idea. Yes.
And I'm taking a photograph of each room in the
Right,
home
right.
and writing an inventory.
Okay.
And having gone through the experience of having these people pass away, I mean,
Sure.
everything moves quickly. Real estate people arrive. I mean,
Yes,
all
yes, of course.
people.
And I understand that because I've experienced, my partner passing away and trying to manage everything. The other question I wanted to ask you, because you've just mentioned you're doing that for yourself now, taking an inventory, taking photographs, listing things. What's the emotional feeling that you're having actually doing this for yourself rather than doing it for your clients?
Well, I tell you, I'm really realizing about me, Mary, my attachment to
Yes,
things,
right.
how I take things and I put meaning into them,
Mm-hmm.
which they may or may not really have.
Okay.
Here in California, we're having so many fires. So
Sure,
people are
sure.
literally losing their entire home.
Right,
And
right.
until you've had some people pass away
Mm,
and you understand how ephemeral life
of
is,
course.
and that this is all stuff. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact is, my brother, who I adored, who was tall and thin and
Mm,
successful and had all of his, he had a massive heart attack hiking.
right, right.
And I just had breakfast with him that morning. I, and with each death in my
Mm-hmm,
family,
mm-hmm.
I learned more
Right.
in that all the money in the world won't bring him back.
Of course,
All
of
the
course.
stuff,
Yes.
and
And
then
that's it, isn't it? It's the stuff. And I think, you're quite right that people can get so hooked on stuff that they forget to get hooked on real life, real people, and really repair any harm and conflict and all of those different things, that really are important for someone who is sort of towards the end of life care, or someone who's aging a little bit more and things like that. Or, even if you're a younger person and you're not even thinking about that right now, it's so important, as Mary's saying, to actually have a little bit of gratitude, if you like. That's what I'm kind
yeah,
of getting the thread through from what you're saying here. It's important to have gratitude so that you can plan these things with a clear heart, clear conscience, and of course, planning with what I always use the term grace and ease, because
yeah,
you don't want to be fretting doing this type of planning for your end of life care, right? Because it's overwhelming as it is. So if you've got somebody out here who's listening and they're into business, how would you say that this relates to a business person, Mary? Talk to us from that
well,
angle, please.
this is really important because I talk about how I help people write their legacy, what
Yes.
they want to be remembered for, etc. But your business has
Hmm.
what's called a succession plan,
Right.
and that
Yes,
is
it does.
how, hopefully it consists of policies, systems,
Mm-hmm.
methods,
Mm-hmm.
how you work, a list of all the advisors,
Sure.
something. So let's just say you're in the hospital for
Yes.
whatever, a month or two, not necessarily dying.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
who is steps in
Absolutely. Yep.
as the CEO, and what is available to them, what has been documented in
Yes.
systems and policy book. Where are the advisor lists?
Mm-hmm.
What would
Mm-hmm.
someone do? Where are all the
Yes.
passwords?
Yes.
So everything that you
It's
have in your
synonymous, isn't it?
personal life,
Yeah.
you have in your business life. And you say, well, my business isn't that big, Mary, or,
Yes.
make that much money. I rent a little apartment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even, I'm paying on my car. I don't need a
Right.
will. I don't need this stuff.
Mm.
No, estate planning is not for rich people.
That's right. That's a
It,
misconception, isn't it? That is actually a real big misconception, actually. You are right. Mm.
and like I said, with your 18-year-old needing the durable power of attorney and advance
Yes, yes.
directive. And the other thing that can happen with an 18-year-old is, potentially they may inherit money.
Right, of course, of course.
So
There's so much
uh,
involved.
there's so much involved, and
Mm.
that's why you need to have someone who's dedicated to you. And yeah, it's complicated. And people that are living together, that doesn't
Yes, yes.
marriage, but actually there are laws around that as far as
So
property.
what you're doing, Mary, is you are opening up what I would like to term a can of worms.
Yeah.
Sometimes this is a can of worms that people really just want to perhaps keep the lid on, because it's one of those things that you definitely, like you said at the beginning, people do not really want to talk about death. We want to talk about life and living and fun and laughter. But, someone who has been a grief counselor, someone who works with trauma and end of life myself historically, I know how difficult that those conversations can be. But, you're highlighting, and this is what it is. You're bringing the highlights, you're bringing the insights and limelighting for us today, the importance of actually thinking about estate planning, thinking about planning for your end of life care and succession planning, more importantly, because we're talking to business entrepreneurs here, how important succession planning is maybe at the start of your business, right? That should be something that should happen
Your bank
parallel,
account,
right?
all that. I would hope that anything you're doing, your daily activities, a list of clients, a list of
Absolutely.
vendors, a list of bank accounts, a list of, your tax returns, your tax,
Yes,
all this kind of stuff somehow is, in big law firms, they have an office manager
that's
who
right. That's right.
basically is doing all that data.
Yes.
And you need to have systems for backup when
Mm-hmm.
things fall apart. And this is kind of like a giant backup. What I call all of this is everybody knows about being a grown up.
Right, right.
Not that I want to be a grown up every day. So
Well, who
much
does? We want to play
fun.
child sometimes. It's good to have let the hair down, Mary, right?
Yes.
Have
And
some
the
fun.
fact is, and we all know there's like scut to everyday
Mm,
life. There's laundry, there's dishes,
absolutely.
there's,
Stuff.
getting a car battery fixed, whatever. Well, estate planning and getting affairs in order and
Right.
making sure that your stuff is handled, even if you don't have a lot of stuff.
Yes, yes.
It's even more so if
Mm,
you've got a lot of things, but that's part of being a grown up. And
absolutely
once
agree.
again, you're
Yes.
modeling that for
Yes.
your children.
Mm-hmm. I
And
totally agree. So it's not one of those things that you can perhaps just leave under the what I would call the lumpy carpet syndrome, because we tend to avoid the difficult things in life because they're just too hard for us to either face or to go through. And you're quite right. It's these are the most important things actually that oftentimes people will leave till last, or they don't do at all. And then it's a nightmare, isn't it, at the end for the person who's got to then pick up the
oh,
pieces to support them to get things in order, as well as perhaps dealing with the trauma and the grief of their experience, because obviously not everybody goes in a most amicable way. Do you see what I'm saying? So again, you've also got to think about the life cycle of grief and people coping and recovering from all of those things as well. So Mary, just to sort of wrap this up, my lovely, what's kind of one piece of wisdom that you would like to leave for our audience today in relation to legacy, life planning, and thinking about all of those things: health, estates, children, finances, homes? What sort of one nugget of wisdom that an insight that you can leave for our audience today?
well, I'm with you. Make it simple and break it down into chunks. So
Right.
maybe go to an office supply store and get yourself a box. And
Mm,
with that box, start to collect your tax returns, some of your bills, a list of your,
yes.
just start slowly. Do it for an
Right.
hour and then be done with it.
Lovely.
Then go back, and add to it. And
Mm.
know that, yeah, this isn't the most fun thing,
I was going to
but
say that, yes, because it isn't the most fun thing at all, is it really? Mm.
you're creating a gift.
Yes.
And one of the things that I talk about, the other thing that can help is to do it with a friend and
Absolutely.
check in on
Absolutely.
the phone with each other and
Right.
encourage each other. Because you're right, you're talking, it's kind of a bummer.
It
It's
is. It
like,
is.
yeah, you're talking about, and then in my case, I keep running into old photos and I
Right.
get
And it brings up
sad.
emotions and
Oh,
all sorts of things as well. So
well,
it's double-sided sword here, isn't there, really, to be
it's
honest?
big, it's very
Yeah.
grown up.
Yes.
know,
So how do you find, I have another question that I want to ask you. Sorry to interrupt you. How do you find that the coaching element comes into the work that you do? How would you find that you having
well,
to?
and I was going to say this a minute ago. How does one lose weight?